What's up, everybody? Welcome to Dad's Expensive Hobby.
What's up?
Today we are taking a look at the SH Figuarts Final Form Cooler. I finally got him. This is one of my Grail piece figures, and I saw him last weekend down there in Lexington, Kentucky, and I had to buy him. I may have paid a little bit too much for him, but I don't care because this figure is really awesome. But does he live up to the hype? I've heard, some people actually have a few negative things to say about this figure. He's not perfect, but my complaints about him are very minuscule in comparison to his aesthetic and just how awesome he is. But we'll get into all that here in a minute. First things first, let's get him scaled up and see how tall he is.
So how tall are you?
All right, to the top of his horns, he is exactly 8 inches tall, and right to the base of where his skull kind of would be, I guess, is more like 7 inches. And that would, after I flip the ruler, would make him right at 20 and a half centimeters to the top of his head. So the entire figure is 20 and a half centimeters. Let's stand him next to some of his family members real quick. Let's stand him next to his brother, Full Power Frieza. And since we never see him in the anime or the manga, I don't think, standing next to each other, I'm going to go ahead and say that that's probably about right. Frieza is definitely not nearly as tall as him. And let's stand him next to the legendary Super Saiyan Goku, just because this most closely matches the depiction of Super Saiyan Goku that was in the Cooler's Revenge movie. And I think that scale's pretty good. Maybe Cooler could be just a little bit bigger because there are some scenes in that movie where he just is an absolute monster compared to Goku. But scaling, and no action figure line scaling is 100%, but I think that's close enough and it looks just fine. Let's stand him next to his old man, King Cold, and there is no comparison. King Cold is just so freaking big. That's crazy how big he is, but he is so awesome. Okay, let's just for fun, because he's a big figure and I like to play with Broly. That sounded weird, ignore it. Let's stand him next to Full Power Broly, and again, there's just no size comparison. Broly just completely towers over him. But I think all the figures look pretty good. I think his scaling is good enough. But let's go ahead and take a look at his accessories.
Propane and propane accessories.
All right, as far as accessories for Cooler, in a lot of ways, I feel like they're a little light, but the awesomeness of the figure makes up for it. Even, not even for the price I paid for him, but even at his retail price of $80, it's a little light, but the figure itself more than makes up for it. But what he does come with is really awesome. He does come with 2 really awesome face sculpts. He comes with his guard face on him in the package, and he has a face without the guard. They both look really good. He comes with 8 really nice interchangeable hands. He has 2 fist hands on him in the package. He has 2 open palm hands. He has 2 grabby hands. And he has 2 pointy finger hands. He comes with 4 really cool looking and detailed feet. He's got 2 flat feet on him in the package. And he's got 2 grippy feet for like if he's flying or standing on a rock. And I'm going to count his tail. It's awesome looking in a lot of ways, but where it's detached from him in the package, I'm counting it as an accessory. And let's not forget about his tail. It doesn't look horrible, but I'm not a big fan of it. And that's the extent of what he comes with, is all that right there. It's not terrible, but I mean, of course, you know me, I would like it if he came with like a blast effect and or a flight stand, something like that. It just feels light, and they don't really do that much anymore. But, what he got does look really good, so I'm not going to cry too much about it. So let's move on, and let's take a look at his paint and detail.
I must paint you.
Oh, that's...
All right, let's check out the aesthetic on this beauty. First things first, we all know, everybody, unless you're a brand new to Dragon Ball and to collecting in general, has seen this figure, and my God, is he gorgeous. This figure is just beautiful. You just can't really complain. But let's start at the top and really look at it. Wonderful high gloss finish on that little blue spot on top of his head. The crazy kind of queen alien shape to his skull is really awesome. The paint on his face sculpt right here is absolutely flawless. Just looks fantastic. The sculpt in these white parts right here of his like body armor, I guess you'd say, looks terrific. Look at all the battle damage and stuff like that you see on him. That is really good. Could it use a wash? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know if a wash on it would detract from it or not, to be quite honest with you. But I think it looks good like this, but could it have used a wash if it was subtle? Yeah, sure. The nice matte to satin finish on the body, I think, was nice and appropriate. It's not flat like, you know, like Broly is, for example. He is a nice example of a flat finish. But it's a nice matte to satin at most. Beautiful shading throughout the muscles. The sculpt of his muscles is great. Beautiful V taper right through here. Nice creation of like the separation of the muscles in his armor. More of the high gloss on the gauntlets with the matte off white right here on the arms. That looks terrific. His tail, a little sausagey.
Then I'll finally slip of the sausage.
Oh, but I think it looks really good, nice and bulbous, and got the little creases in it. The detail, they really took care of detail there. Even battle damage on the end of his tail right here. Moving down to the leg gauntlets, the nice the contrast of the high gloss right here into the matte right there, to the matte satin of the purple skin. His fingernails and his toenails all have that glossy paint. Looks fantastic. Nice contrast to the matte / satin finish of the skin there. Details in the knuckles of the feet look fantastic. My God, this figure is gorgeous. Yeah! More of that shading in the muscle right through there. And it's subtle. It's not a lot. It's just enough shading in the abdomen. There's a little bit of shading on his back and shading on the sides and backs of the legs. This figure was handled and created with such care. This is basically him, and a few of the other figures are just the gold standard for what Tamashii and Bandai can do when they put their minds to it. This figure is absolutely gorgeous. There's no arguing that. And all of his accessories had the same amount of care put into them. That's really all I've got for his paint and detail. You know, his aesthetic is just second to none. You know, he's just in a league with just a handful of other Tamashii figures. Let's move in and talk about his articulation.
I know Kung Fu.
All right, before I get completely into the articulation, I just want to point out that during the paint and detail, I did not mention the shade of purple. I have heard people say that he's the wrong kind of purple or he's too dark, and an argument may be made for that. You know, in anime and in cartoons in general, things are brighter. They just can be. I think they brought him to life perfectly, and I think this was a beautiful kind of grape color to bring him to life with, so I have zero complaints about it. Moving on. Let's start with his head. His head, it's kind of designed funny. You know, it's kind of like a helmet right there, if you see that. And it's wide, and he's got these shoulder pads, so it doesn't move around a big bunch, and that's because of design. That's just the way he's created, because he's on a double ball peg, so he's got the tools to move around really good. He's just made to where his head doesn't move around a lot. Like I said, that little helmet kind of looking thing there. His neck moves around a little bit, pretty decent. It's just on a little ball peg in there, kind of stiff, but not really. But just the sculpt and design of his head, he doesn't move real well.
Oh my God.
These move and kind of not aid, but they don't super duper hinder his shoulder articulation. Shoulders way past 90. That's gorgeous. I love every second of that. And they can come across him fairly well if you finagle and mess with it enough. His butterfly actually does its job to an extent. They almost touch. For as big and as much shit as he has in his way, the fact that they can get that close is actually pretty good. So I'm not going to complain too much for that. Double jointed bicep swivel, double jointed elbow, just past 90. He's got these big gauntlets that kind of get in the way, and I don't have a problem with it. A little bit of gap right there in the elbow. Not a huge fan of that.
That sucks.
But everything else, it's just I'm willing to overlook it for sure. And the wrist is on a ball hinge, and it moves fine enough. His ab articulation is great, leans back really well, and unless you tilt him like this, no gapping, so I like that a lot. In the front or the back, there's no gapping. He tilts side to side really well. He's got some movement down here from this little ball joint that's in here, so he's got the diaphragm brake, and down here, so he moves really well in that department. Does a really good split, in my opinion. Big figures that can do this, I have zero problem with it. So that looks really good. This right here hinders maybe a little bit if you can get it to go under. You can get almost 180 degree split out of him. Nice tight joints, holds a good front kick. Way past, not way past, but just past the waist. So that's really good. He has a tail, so he can't kick back, no big deal. Got a thigh swivel. Double jointed knee that's way past 90. Again, a little bit of gapping.
Jesus Christ.
But, you know, his brother had that problem too, and I don't hold it against him, so no big deal there. No kind of shin swivel or anything. Same kind of feet as Frieza and Cooler. It's just a big, his ankle's just a big ball hinge, but goes up a little bit, not too terrible. Goes down really well, and it's got some good ankle rocker on it. So his articulation for the most part is pretty good. Let's look at his tail. We all know that I don't like tails. I just don't like how they're done. And
I'm not there yet.
his is really no exception. But it's a ball hinge up here, moves all the way around. The sculpt on it's really good, but it's got a break here in the middle that kind of breaks the sculpt. And they're okay. They're heavy and big, but whatever. As far as tails go, this one isn't the most disgusting one I've ever seen. But it's not awesome, but it does the job. It's not that big of a deal. Overall, his articulation, perfectly acceptable for me. I'd say Frieza was a little bit more flexible, but then again, Frieza had a much more simple kind of design. Didn't have these big shoulder things that are in the way. And all they really blocked was just his, his butterfly coming across. But his butterfly functions really well. If you can see that in there, it works well. It's just these kind of block it a little bit. But he doesn't throw Kamehameha blasts or any kind of two-handed blasts where they would need to come super close together. But the fact that they're less than a centimeter apart, that's not too shabby. And that's all I've got for his articulation. He moves pretty well. Let's move into my final thoughts.
Now listen to me very carefully.
All right, before I give my verdict on Final Form Cooler here, I want to give a shout out to my cousin Danielle for being the good luck charm when she went with me on my little figure hunt last weekend. Her being with me, I think, is what gave me the good luck to bump into this figure, so I'm giving her a nice shout out. Thanks, Danielle. And as far as Cooler here, I think you already know my thoughts on him. He is freaking fantastic. I'm going to give him the grade of premier. This is a premium level figure, same as his brother. I know a lot of you all might disagree with me, but to me, you're wrong. You can have whatever thoughts you want. He is a premium figure too, and this guy is no exception to that. This figure is fantastic. I highly, highly recommend you buy him. I know he is expensive. Trust me, I spent $180 on him. That's a subjective price as far as whether or not you feel like that's acceptable. For me, it was, but it's expensive, and I know not everybody can pay that.
I'm broke, nigga! I'm broke!
I wish he was still $80. I'd have bought 2 or 3 of them if he was. But with all that said, that's my thoughts on him. He's fantastic. He's one of the best figures ever made, in my opinion. Like and subscribe. Share this video. You all know that if you've watched my other videos that we are on the road to 500 subscribers and we need your help to get there. So like, subscribe, share the video, comment, do all that good stuff for us, and check out our other videos. They're pretty good too. I'm up and coming and trying to make good videos for everybody. With all that said, this has been Dad with Dad's Expensive Hobby, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.